The copper-like taste of blood in his mouth. Tate O'Byrne's tongue has been melted away. He joins a growing number of innocent people who've been assaulted by an unseen force across the country. This week, we meet one person who may help unravel the mystery. I'm your narrator, Chad, and this is Episode 7, Chapters 9, 10, and 11 of No Evil. Let's escape. The familiar scent of cigar smoke filled the room. All the windows were closed. They were covered with thick, translucent plastic, then sealed with silver duct tape, like a makeshift greenhouse. The room was bright, with mid-afternoon light, but everything outside the window was blurred and distorted through the plastic. Cars drove by in colorful blobs. Between the heat and the smoke, it was suffocating. It was a small room without much furniture. A cot with a thin blanket and pillow were piled on one side of the concrete floor. On the other side was a washing machine and a dryer. In the middle was a long folding table with a pair of chairs on either side of it. The walls were covered with wood paneling. The only thing hanging on them was a calendar. July 1980. The calendar had been written on with red marker. One square bracket opened around Saturday, July 19th. Another closed around July 25th. Between the brackets, 4 days had been crossed off with big, imprecise X's. Outside, the neighborhood was alive with the muffled sound of summer ritual. Fits of laughter rose and fell as children ran through sprinklers, the drone of more than one lawnmower, the jingle of an ice cream truck. A small boy, no more than 5, sat at the folding table. His red hair was matted and wet. Beads of sweat ran down his face, and he was constantly wiping it from his stinging eyes. A man on the other side of the table blew smoke tauntingly in his face, then slammed the black book down onto the table. "Do you know what this is?" "Yes," the boy said, looking anywhere but at the man. "Yes, what?" "Yes, sir." They had done this dance before, and the boy delivered his line with the practiced elegance of a stage performance. Then he straightened his back against the chair. It extended past the top of his head, and it made him look even smaller. He raised his eyes and came face to face with the man. "So, what is it then?" the man said. He had a mouth filled with yellowed teeth. He took the cigar from his mouth and held it between his thumb and index finger. Then he blew on the end of it, making the embers glow. The boy pressed his back firmly to the chair and pushed as far as he could go. "It's the Lord's book, sir." "Then what is it we don't do?" The boy's vision blurred with tears. His face wrinkled and blossomed red. The man impatiently puffed the cigar, blew the smoke into the boy's face again, and then moved it back between his fingers. He grabbed the boy's arm and pulled it back across the table toward him. "We don't wet the bed! We don't wet the bed!" "That's right. We don't." Then the man tightened his grip and pushed the smoldering end of the cigar into the boy's wrist. "Now, cross off another day, Tate." Chapter 10. The newsroom never seemed to stay quiet for long. One phone rang, then it seemed they all rang at once. The sound of keyboards clacking rolled in waves. A tall woman with short, dark brown hair sat at a computer in the middle of the controlled chaos of the Chronicle Standard. She was in her 20s, slender and beautiful with big brown eyes. She was hunched at the desk, scrolling through a folder marked story ideas. She clicked aimlessly. "Still sulking, Jan?" a voice from behind her said. "I wasn't sure you were going to make it," she said without looking up. "Yeah, I had to have a bit of a discussion this morning. Listen, Mr. Murray, Andre." She grabbed a page from her desk and began to read aloud. "Mr. 96% average with a, quote, knack for hard-hitting journalism. I'm in charge of you, so no backtalk." She felt him grab for the page from behind her, but she spun in her chair, continuing to talk. "Willingness to dedicate the time to proper investigations." "Well, that's good," Jan said. "Our interns definitely need to have some of these very traits." "Jan, come on. When does this end?" "It ends when we run out of material. And don't call me Jan. You may call me Miss Quinn." Don't you guys know that hazing isn't cool anymore? Now you know the brilliance of being succinct. It's a lesson we all must learn." "I get it. Can we be done with this now? It's embarrassing. I wrote personal things in there." "Oh, relax. We've all been through it. I wrote that I aspired to one day win a Pulitzer. Now I'm writing 3-minute reads about cat hygiene. No wonder they were laughing so hard. That's cold, Andre said. Oh well. Besides, everyone knows how competitive this internship is. We all know you're good. Now you have to prove you're serious. He was a bit shorter than her, with tightly cropped hair. His eyes were bright, mischievous, and there was something about him that lit the room. Jen stifled a laugh as she finally caught a glimpse of his attempted compliance with the dress code. He saw her inspecting him, then stood as if showcasing himself, arms splayed out at his sides as he did a spin. He waved his hands, calling attention to each accessory: a short-sleeved shirt with a tie, possibly clip-on, a red hoodie, and equally red Adidas. I see you got the memo about appropriate dress from Peter, she said, smirking. I thought you said they wouldn't pay much attention to what I wear. I got a stern talking to, Miss Quinn. I was only kidding. I was also only kidding about the dress code. You may want to lose the hood, add some sleeves, and maybe think about some dress shoes, Jan said, pointing at his feet. Andre had been introduced as her latest responsibility a few weeks ago. At the time, it was just another thing to worry about. It was another box to check every day, more decisions to make, more meetings, more of the stuff Jan had no interest in dealing with. But in a short time, her sentiment had changed. Now she felt they were on divergent paths toward the same destination, that destination being a commitment to the craft, to holding power to account. Sometimes she felt she'd jumped so quickly into a life constantly in motion and full of responsibility that maybe she'd missed out on the good times people reminisce about. Although they were about the same age, Andre still had a youthful ease about him that was appealing. She could also relate to him a bit easier than some of her colleagues, which was why they were paired up. Yeah, I ordered some new clothes online, got a sick deal on some leather kicks. Gonna put some style into this place, he said as he brushed the front of his shirt with mock bravado. Ha! Wow! I look forward to seeing that. Anyway, to answer your question, no, I'm not, in fact, sulking. I'm reviewing my disappointment and regrouping, Jan said. Sure. Anyway, I've been assigned to assist you for the rest of the day as your photographer, Andre said. I see. Did Peter do this to me? Peter is the city editor guy? Andre, you've been here 3 weeks. You don't know Peter is the city editor? Yeah, I totally knew that. I was just making sure you did. So, what do we have this fine afternoon? Jan turned to her computer and clicked on the email icon. Dozens of messages found their way into her inbox. Some were usable news releases, some just blatant advertising junk. A quarter of them were complaints about stories, nearly all of which she didn't write. Finally, she found what she was looking for. Well, here we go, our big story for the day, she said, turning the screen so Andre could read it. He hunched over her, elbows resting on her desk. She could smell his cologne. It was nice. She found her eyes wandering away from the computer and to him. She couldn't help it, even though she told herself it wasn't appropriate. She liked him. Are you for real? We have to go watch a beauty pageant for babies? His voice pulled her back from her stare, and as she slowly turned to the computer, Jan's eyes met Andre's. Where are you right now, Jan? You look deep in thought. Jan blushed, then hopped out of her seat. Yep, let's go, she said. The drive to the local community center was 5 kilometers of agonizing humiliation, and, in city traffic, it took much longer than it rightfully should have. Can't believe they turned down my investigation of water costs for this, Jan said. Yeah, that would be much more exciting to photograph, Andre said, exaggeratedly rolling his eyes. A short way from the community center, they were both struggling to make conversation. While stopped at a light, Andre finally put his hand on hers. Jan turned and looked at him. His brown eyes glistened. It's cool. We made out. We were tipsy. It happens. I don't expect anything to happen between us. Besides, I really don't want to jeopardize this awesome internship. For real. We don't need to be weird. Jan remained silent for a time, and when the light turned, she continued forward. He obviously had an idea of what she was thinking, but not the whole idea. She did want to be with him. He made her smile and eased her stress. In a short time, she already knew a lot about him, more than she'd been able to draw from her last 2 relationships combined. It started over a drink one night after work. It had been her idea, presented in the guise of building camaraderie in the newsroom, but she really just wanted to get to know him. Throughout the night, she'd discovered they shared a love for cheesy horror movies. They got together the next night to watch one. Things snowballed from there, and soon they were sharing stories. He told her that his father raised him solo after his mom died. She knew that his father shared with him a love of classical music and that sometimes he liked to listen to it on quiet nights. She knew that he joked about things a lot because his father told him to be himself and always take the time to laugh. Jen thought there was a real connection there. She finally spoke. "I know, there can't be anything between us, at least not right now," she said. His eyes lit up and he smiled. "Right now, as in possibly in the future right now?" Yes, I think. I actually find you quite intriguing." She suddenly felt a sharp panic, like she'd shown her hand too early. But she was soon reassured when he simply nodded and smiled while affixing his press pass to the chest of his unzipped hoodie. "How are you not cold?"
"I'm hot-blooded."
Wow. The future is getting a lot farther away. When they finally pulled into the community center, the snow had begun to fly. It was cold, but not insufferably so, and it was actually quite nice now that Jen was completely flushed. Andre lifted the hatch on Jan's Yaris and got out his camera bag while she checked the batteries on her voice recorder and tucked her notepad in the side pocket of her coat. She pulled a pencil out of her bag and put it in the opposite pocket. Jan was locking the car when she heard crickets. "What the?" Andre asked. "It's my phone, I just got a text. Just a second." Jan's face turned from puzzled to shocked as she read it. "What is it?" "My friend lives downtown. She says the cops were at her building. They're keeping things quiet." She stopped, raising her hand to her forehead. "But she says the superintendent was speaking with a neighbor when this guy starts freaking out in his apartment. She calls the cops. They find him with his eyes burned out." Chapter 11. The first thing Sam heard was a sort of whirring, like a fan with long sweeping blades. Then there was a beep. Many beeps. They danced in his mind as flashes of light. Then Sam could hear a voice. Real words now behind the constant ringing in his ears. A sickly smell of sterilized paper sheets and medication permeated his room, and he realized that the words were calling from a speaker in the ceiling above him. He was in a hospital. He touched his hands to his face, finding it wrapped in gauze. It was real. It was all real. He was blind. He sobbed, his whole body shaking, and he started dry heaving over the side of the bed. As he retched again, he felt a scraping sting as the IV line threshed inside his arm. He panicked and began to flail as he coughed up pungent bile. Sam heard a voice again, closer now, and not distorted. "Get the doctor! He's nearly pulled out the intravenous." Sam heard the squeak of rubber soles on the floor as the nurses darted around the room. He felt a strange sensation as they eased the intravenous needle back into his arm. "Just relax, Sam, you're in the hospital," a man said. "We're giving you a bit of morphine for the pain." Sam felt some arms around him, guiding him to the center of the small cot he'd nearly thrown himself off of. A man's voice was clear above the din. Sam didn't think the man was in the room, maybe just outside the door. In any other emergency room Sam had seen, either in person or through his hefty TV habit, the rooms had been little more than a curtained-off area with a bed. He'd heard a door open and close multiple times, and the muffling effect it had on the noise outside his room suggested it was a heavy one. He supposed seeing someone with their eyes burned out would force the authorities to take some precautions. The man outside the door wasn't exactly whispering. His booming voice seemed unaccustomed to being lowered, and instead it came out as a nearly full-volume growl. There was some shuffling at the end of his bed as he listened to the man debate whether Sam was ready to talk about what happened. Sam wasn't. What could he say? He wasn't even sure what happened. "Yes, officer, a disembodied voice picked me up and blowtorched my eyeballs." "What's that?" "No, I've never tried acid." "Spontaneous combustion, maybe?" "No. I'm not even sure that's real." "And this is?" The voices both outside Sam's door and in his own mind melded in a soothing hum. Before he realized he was even dozing, he was waking up. The door had swung open, and Sam could hear all the signs of a busy hospital. The grumbling voice and a woman were entering. Sam felt much better. He figured they had waited an hour, maybe two, before coming in, and he was glad for it. "Mr. Munson, I'm Detective Constable Diane Latchford with the Provincial Police. I'm here with Detective Constable Terry Nielsen."
"Howdy,"
said Nielsen. His voice was the growling rasp Sam had heard in the hall. "Are you able to speak with us?" Latchford said. "I suppose," Sam said, propping himself up. "How did I get here?"
"Your landlord was on the floor. Said she heard a ruckus. Voices or screams,"
said Nielsen. "Voices?" "Just yours," said Latchford. "Unless there was someone with you?" No, I'm not sure." I heard something. I woke up and my eyes were burning. That's all I really remember, Sam said.
Any idea what that something is? Nielsen said.
No, the TV was on, but I was asleep. Look, was someone in my apartment?
Well, the door and the windows were untouched and were locked up tight when the paramedics got there. You were unconscious on the floor. Does anyone else have a key to your apartment, Mr. Munson?
Said Latchford. Sam paused for a moment, recalling Case had had a key to his place for years. No, just me.
Well, that's a problem, isn't it? Guys on the scene tell us there wasn't anything in your apartment that could have done this. No torches, no chemicals, not even a lighter, said Nielsen. Look, Munson, I think you know more than you're telling us here. Is there anyone you think might be capable of this? If someone has it out for you, you can tell us. We can protect you, added Latchford.
I don't know anything. All I know is I was having trouble sleeping. Some strange shit has been happening. I can't explain it. I just can't, Sam said, clasping his hands together. There was something there. I'd heard something. Next thing I know, his memory was hazy. Sam couldn't tell if it was from the morphine or from the shock. He paused, trying to piece together the fragments. He recalled speaking to Case. That's right, we went to the sleep clinic. I was at the sleep clinic. There was some sort of electrical fire or something. We saw... He paused again, considered telling the police about the shadow, then didn't.
What did you see?
Latchford said. We saw a woman get burned pretty badly. I'm not sure how it happened, but there was some kind of electrical surge or something. Maybe it's connected? The officer shared a glance but didn't speak for a moment.
Did you do this to yourself, Sam?
Latchford said. What? No way. How could I? Again, there was silence. Sam heard Latchford whispering, and Nielsen grunted here and there, signaling agreement.
Okay, thanks for your time. Get some rest, said Latchford. If there's anything you want to tell us, have the nurse give us a call at this number.
Sam felt her place a card into his hand. Nielsen grumbled something as the pair walked out the door, but Sam couldn't tell what it was exactly. The detective's aggressiveness had caught him off guard. It made him feel guilty of something. Then he heard movement again. Mr. Munson? Yes? Sorry, I'm just gonna get you settled in here. She took the card from his hand. I'll set this just here on the table. Okay. She pulled the blanket up from the end of his bed and covered him. If there's anything else you need, you can press that button at your side and we'll come ASAP. Sam felt around beside him. Finding a smooth cord, he followed it to a plastic cylinder, a little fatter than a roll of antacid tablets. Got it. Sam listened to the squeak of her shoes as she left the room. He felt like weeping. His eyes were gone and he didn't know why. As the door to his room clicked closed, he could feel the morphine kicking in. It crept up his spine. His muscles grew tense, and then all at once they relaxed, and he could feel the drug disperse through his entire body. He drifted away, first thinking of his truck and how it must be snowed in, then to the circles of light racing in his mind like his eyes were still there, then to darkness. That's all for episode 7, chapters 9, 10, and 11 of No Evil. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you like what you hear, please follow, like, subscribe, click the bell, do all the social media things. If our cereal isn't your bag, perhaps you're a nature lover. Check out our wildlife and nature relaxation videos and guided meditations. All of our content is meant to evoke feelings, to provide an escape, and to send out positive vibes. If that's your thing, please become an escapist by subscribing and clicking the bell. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the next escape.